For those of you who have been involved in our work at the American Fintech Council, Orson Aguilar is going to be no stranger. Orson was, I don't want to say the deputy, but Ezra's not here, so we can say Orson led the public affairs and government affairs team at Oportun for many, many years and was a critical partner in our work as we try to build coalition and collaboration throughout the industry. He has now left Oportun not too long ago, but in only a very short time, has built an amazing organization at LatinoProsperity. I'm not going to butcher it, and I'm going to allow Orson to come on up here and bring his panel up as well. So Orson, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. First, want to just thank AFC for hosting this amazing panel discussion today, for allowing LatinoProsperity to sponsor the conversation, and for also inviting LatinoProsperity to be on the Community Advisory Board for AFC. It's great to be back in the AFC family. LatinoProsperity is a newer organization focused on national policy to build wealth in the nation's growing Latino community. And it's an honor to be able to host this conversation today, where we're going to talk about fintech, justice, equity, and inclusion with some really amazing entrepreneurs that are doing amazing work, where they saw opportunities that other financial institutions didn't see. They stepped in and are doing great work, and so they're here to tell you about that. So rather than me introduce them, I want them to tell their stories, and we'll start with Kelly. Kelly is the founder and CEO of Guava, but Kelly, maybe tell us a little bit about the company, but tell us the opportunity you saw. And notice I'm not saying what's the problem you saw, what's the opportunity you saw, and give us that story because it's quite amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I don't need this. You guys can hear me, yeah? The opportunity I saw was $13 trillion. That's essentially the opportunity for, or the disparity that we have when Black-owned small businesses don't have access or equitable access to capital. And so that's kind of my anchoring or my North Star. I built Guava. We launched in 2021. We built the first neobank for Black entrepreneurs, really focused on Main Street entrepreneurs who won't be in like a Techstars or an accelerator. So, a construction worker or a barber or a yoga studio owner is still asking questions about like, what's the best incorporation model? Where do I do my taxes? What's SEO and how do I use it? How do I build a business that's sustainable? So we built this neobank to give greater access to core financial products like a bank account, a checking card, a debit card, so that people aren't using Cash App and PayPal for their businesses, as well as a community platform that not only connected entrepreneurs with each other so they can share their best practices, their stories, but so that we can bring experts and advisors in for these entrepreneurs so that they can have the best-in-class resources.
Thank you, Kelly. We have a similar entrepreneur on stage, Magnus Larsson with Majority. Congratulations. You also just joined AFC, we saw. But what is the opportunity that you saw? And just tell us the story real quickly, because you're doing amazing work with immigrant communities.
Thank you. Yeah, so I built my previous company. We have a couple of million customers globally in the migrant communities around the world. And spending a lot of time meeting with a lot of different communities in Europe and here in the US, a couple of things that we discovered. One was actually the headache of actually moving and getting access to financial services. But also the unique thing when you have moved from another country is that you also have this cross-border type of living. You need to sometimes you support your family back home even, or you need to be in contact with your family back home. So what Majority is actually, we think about it more as a platform. And that platform gives you access to banking services, such as a neobank, on a debit card and account. But it also gives you the other type of services that you need, is being able to send money, being able to call home, maybe being able to also pay for different bills that you have internationally. And another thing that is very unique when you have moved from another country is also that your culture and sometimes your language is actually one of the main barriers. There were two things that we really saw as the opportunity. It was actually the challenges of accessibility, but also the predatory fees that you get hit by. I come from Sweden, fairly wealthy country in the world. I moved to the US. I speak fairly good English. I still can't lease a car. I've still been denied in at least 3 of the different credit card applications that I've tried to do. And you can then just imagine the scale of this issue. And there's 300 million, and in the US, just alone, the largest country is a nation of immigrants, 50 million first-generation foreign-born population in this country. And they're all struggling in different ways of actually getting access and getting, not have to end up paying those predatory fees.
My parents came from Guatemala many years ago, but I wish they had your app because I remember seeing them struggling for everything, for a money transfer, opening a bank account. It was done in such an inefficient manner that had they had this app, like what an amazing tool that would have been. Gonzalo, you're the Chief Marketing Officer at Oportun. As you all heard from Phil, I was with Oportun before this, so I'm not picking any favorites here. But Oportun is also a very unique company. You also have a brick and mortar with branches, an app. Talk a little bit about the opportunity that you see with the people that you serve.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Orson, and thank you, AFC. Great to be here. So for Oportun, we're a mission-based organization dedicated to providing access to affordable and inclusive borrowing, savings, and budgeting solutions. As the largest CDFI, we were pioneer in the use of technology to provide access to financial services and really provide economic opportunity to our members. We've extended over $19 billion in personal loans, and also through our award-winning savings app, we've helped our members set aside over $10 billion by seamlessly moving cash from their checking to their savings account. So that combination of both providing funds when our members need them, but also at the same time helping them to save, kind of creates this long-term value proposition to actually help them and empower them to move forward. And the demand for our product demonstrates that there's still a lot of appetite for it. And we cover, we focus on providing an omni-channel experience where we actually have store physical locations part of the community, but then we also provide a whole full omni-channel experience where we can engage with them through phone support, through our mobile app, or online. And then we do it end-to-end in Spanish and in English. So those elements have really created high NPS experience, and we do see it when they come in and return for loans or actually take on their app and use it both for savings or actually to pay down their loans. And actually we've seen substantial benefit in their paying experience and paying more often when they do it through the app.
Thank you, Gonzalo. We're also honored to have Tamara Zeidan, who is with the Office of Innovation here in Washington, D.C., with the Office of Securities and Banking and Insurance. I got that backwards a little bit. But when you hear about these companies that are doing innovative work into communities that are unbanked, underbanked, underserved, what comes to mind for Washington, D.C.?
Thank you, and thank you for pronouncing my name correctly.
My fallback is always Spanish to pronounce names, so
Perfect.
I'm glad it worked.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the inaugural director for the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. We recently, early 2023, launched an office, the Office of Innovation, that's focused on building out the fintech ecosystem in Washington, D.C. And so what that means to us is being able to provide impactful fintechs with regulatory compliance and the tools and the resources to scale and really serve underserved and underbanked residents in the district. And so a somewhat recent study for the FDIC focused on underbanked and underserved populations. DC has about 13% underserved residents in the district. What that means is they may have services or they may have a bank account, but not necessarily rely heavily on it or rely on alternative services, some that may be predatory or expensive. And so when we think about ways to really meet residents where they are, we're thinking beyond the traditional brick and mortar. We're thinking of innovative fintechs like the ones that you have on stage today, those that really speak to the barriers that residents are facing, including language barriers that was highlighted earlier. And so there's a big commitment for the district under the mayor's vision for DC's comeback plan to support these innovative solutions. And the office is really focused on that under the leadership of Commissioner Karima Woods.
Thank you, Tamara. Kelly, maybe give us a little bit of insights into what you're seeing with your customer base. Obviously, you're being successful. People are coming to you because they don't see anybody else providing the solution you're providing. Give us some insights into your customers.
Yeah, I think when you're serving Black communities, what we often see are like the same ads with a Black face in February and now sometimes in August because it's Black Business Month. And that's, the serving Black communities that we get and not actually thinking about the idiosyncratic elements of serving a community that has been kind of systematically excluded from our financial ecosystem. And excuse my voice, everyone, I'm trying to not be sick before Thanksgiving. And so what we make a point to do is think about, one, where Black people are. We're pretty concentrated locations. DC is one of them, where there's a high concentration of Black people and subsequently Black businesses, Black-owned businesses. On top of that, there's also a high concentration of the types of industries and the types of businesses that Black folks are building, which have like historic ramifications or reasons for them. I won't get into it. But when you have something like 5 or 6 geographies representing 80% of a population and 4 industries where there's a concentration, it allows us to be really pointed with how we talk to people, the kinds of services that we provide, the types of resources we provide, right? So we know that 50%, for example, 50% of all barbershops are Black owned, right? So I can talk about that very specifically and very targeted as opposed to kind of a spray and pray approach where I'm putting the same ad but a Black face on it and hoping that that resonates with people. We're being, quite intentional. In addition to that, just being also really thoughtful about the community partners that we have. Like many underserved communities, a lot of things happen via word of mouth. For example, the PPP loans. In many Black communities, it were groups of small business owners that were telling each other what CDFIs to go to where they can get a loan process because that wasn't happening at the large institutions. And so being really thoughtful and careful about the partners that we have to ensure that we're, building trust with communities and not coming in a kind of cumbersome or clunky way.
Thank you, Kelly. Magnus, I was looking at your website, and one, you have a very diverse team. You want to be able to serve people from different countries. What are you seeing from obviously as immigrants, there's a shared experience, but there's also a lot of diversity depending on where people come from, different people, educational backgrounds. What are the customer insights you're finding with your new app?
Well, I think one of the main things when you think about when you move to the United States, you want to become a new American, is that the problems that you're facing are the same. And interestingly enough, it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what are your social background or socioeconomics, you also share the same values. So you want to come, you want to build a better life, you want to work hard, and you see yourself as ambitious. So those are things that actually when we think about Majority, the brand is created for one group and the problems are the same. But that's where about the similarities stops and where the differences starts coming in. And I can speak for being a Swedish immigrant in this country, right? So one of the things that we've decided and the way that we think about it is that every community, and if you look at the United States as an example, the majority of migrants actually reside in the largest cities. And almost every community have a capital almost in the US. You have Ethiopians here in DC in the north side. You have the Cubans in Hialeah in Miami. So one of the things that we decided, and a little bit different from Oportun, you have your 100 stores or places you can walk in. What we do is that we hire people within the community. And we train them to become representatives and how to actually explain this product. Because the differences you have is that you're lacking history when you come here. You're lacking understanding. So you need someone that can actually take you through that journey. And the way that we think about it from a product strategy is that we're trying to follow that journey. But also then with these advisors that basically take every different diaspora through the journey also of getting integrated. That was the reason why I started this company. I come from a country where we brought in a lot of immigration in a very short period of time. The number of immigrants is a political decision, but when people are here, the faster you get into society, the faster you become economically independent, the better it is for everyone. So it's about integration, and that's basically what Majority is about. How do we do that faster and better and safer for everyone?
Thank you, Magnus. Gonzalo, your Oportun's path is a little more mature. You've been around a little longer. What are some takeaways, given that you've helped over 1 million consumers build credit scores, you've hundreds of thousands of loans that you've done in your portfolio. What are takeaways from Oportun that you can leave the audience with?
Yeah, absolutely. So one very recent one is this combination of both the omnichannel, local, community level, and also how you can actually have a store strategy, community strategy, but mixing it with technology, and as you grow the business itself. So we have implemented and grown over time a referral program where our members who give us a very high NPS actually refer other members to come in. And that's sort of a very traditional common piece, but for us, it's actually elevated our growth in a meaningful way because rather than spending money on Google and Facebook, and they already have plenty of money, we've been able to integrate both how our members talk about our product and tell other members about it, not just through word of mouth and store, but also doing it through the app. So it's this bridge of both high NPS and kind of love for the company and the product, but manifested both on digital and sort of brick and mortar community level. So that's been a kind of a big insight there. And then the other piece is over time that you can lead to better outcomes from a credit improvement perspective. You've seen over 1 million had no credit scores, now have a credit score and actually get into the financial mainstream. And eventually they pay off their loan and get ability to get credit cards or mortgages and so forth. But now we also, after their first or second loan, they pay us off. They actually can have a savings experience where they can build savings for it's a down payment for an apartment, or if they want to do a trip, or actually for a special event or a bridesmaid dress, planning for a wedding. They can do all that with a goal set within our app once they've already kind of paid off our loan, and we keep that lasting experience from there on.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Tamara, Washington, D.C. is a very, I would say, a proactive government. Your agency is very proactive. Mm-hmm. What does responsible regulation look like, especially when you're seeing such a diverse array of products, mm-hmm. Many of them novel, but what is the Washington, D.C.'s approach to that regulation?
Thank you for that question. The office was really set up to help bridge any misunderstandings or create clarity when it comes to what regulation is needed for the companies that come to DC and set up. And so we look at regulation as really a partnership and not a barrier. It's an opportunity to ensure that fintechs can navigate the DC ecosystem safely, and residents have access to the services that these fintechs provide and have that trust. And so obviously there's a lot of, on the federal level, lack of clarity when it comes to some regulations, but the Office of Innovation here in DC is committed to providing the clarity that's needed to be able to establish your business and do business here in the district. We have that commitment. For a lot of reasons, aside from obviously providing residents with the services that they need, but also, it was mentioned on the panel that hiring locally, hiring representatives from the community that really speak to community members. And so we see this as a real opportunity for us to support companies in the capacity that they need that support, whether it's regulation or connecting them with community resources, because it's really a win-win for the government and obviously for the fintech.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great to see, again, a city that's just so proactive and really diving into fintech. I'd say it's pretty unique, and we need a lot more cities like that. And reason why we joined AFC is because they also talk about responsible regulation, and regulation being that partnership. And that's one of the things that we try to do at LatinoProsperity, is think of what that partnership is with organizations that are going to come and serve the Latino community in ways that help build wealth. Magnus, maybe as we're closing out, what are things, I know we're in DC, we're not going to get political, but what excites you about the next few years in terms of your company, the use of AI technology so that you can continue to grow and expand?
That was a big questions. Well, I think I'm looking forward, I think, in the coming years, in general, maybe a little bit more clarity. I think one of the things that we are approaching, so to say, when we're using partner banks, et cetera, today to deliver our products, so to say. And one of the things that I think we're facing sometimes is actually that people want to act on perceived risk and not actual risk. And I think this is maybe where I really hope that the coming years also will be more from a perspective, what is actual risk and what is real. Because I think everyone that builds a company and are treating customers want to do it from a good place of safeness, and from having a good product for your users. And I went through the journey myself, coming here, trying to start a company as an immigrant in financial services. I thought that would be, I come from Sweden, how hard can it be? And they're like, oh, but due diligence on you is going to be much more difficult. And of course, because I don't have the history, when I speak about what I've done, it doesn't mean the same thing. So I think, like, moving into a place where maybe the clarity of the election has been, hanging over the market a little bit, and I think also the last year has finally kind of put out some good things that people understand what is needed, etc. So I think, like, moving on beyond that. And then in general, I think looking forward to also continue just launching products to our consumers, the different communities that we serve today, and finding even better ways to serve them and making them integrate faster into U.S. economy.
Thank you, Magnus. What about for you, Callie? What are the things that you're really excited about in the coming year or coming years?
It's a hard question today, obviously. But I think Magnus's point about perceived risk really resonates for me, especially when you're thinking about marginalized communities where things like your FICO score is not based on your perceived risk. And so, the applications of AI for kind of real-time reporting for business health for us is really exciting. I think, 1071, where banks are actually having to collect on race and ethnicity for small business applications so that we can have data about the loans that have been granted or denied, and we can actually, do some work to create more equity and access to credit for Black and brown entrepreneurs is really exciting for me. I'm hoping that stays, that there is some kind of application of that rule. And I think the last thing that I was very excited about was the Treasury's report on financial inclusion as like a potential carrot for industry to, think about ways to include more people, for policymakers to use that as a guide to creating a more equitable financial landscape.
Thank you, Callie. Gonzalo, what's Oportun excited about in the next coming years?
I think to build on what Kelly said around from a data and FICO perspective, one of the things that we've noticed, and it doesn't even need to get to the AI level, is many of the bureaus still parse last names out to a certain level of character counts. And so for Latinos and for us, our full name release are both our parents' last names. If you have a pretty long last name and it gets parsed out, the ability to properly identify and match you to credit and build your credit score is a bit of a challenge, right? And so we are able to score 100% of our applicants through all the different sources of data that we use. But I think in general, we would like to see from a bureau perspective and the subsequent build history that they take into account the minority use cases where you have actually sort of last names that are far longer and actually will allow you to match and have a properly aligned credit going forward. So I think to the prosperity aspect and equity, right, that is something that in a proportion from a bigger business may not be something they want to focus on shift code on their big tables, but it can make a disproportionate benefit to a Latino or minority audience. And then from a business trajectory, and is this combination, again, we've seen significant traction on helping our members save. I want to deepen that because we understand there's a need for a loan for an emergency. We provide the funds when they need them. As they get better credit scores, they can get lower cost of credit cards and so forth, apply for a mortgage. But at the same time, there's this limited ability to be able to save. It takes a lot of discipline, and there's a lot of energy in the market to kind of make you spend it, not save it. And our apps have been really managed to help them save on average $1,800 in 12 months, which is a pretty remarkable number. So it's more getting that story out and get more adoption on the savings side.
Tamara, maybe perhaps a different question. You know, we've heard today that, you know, regulatory environment's going to change, right? It probably will be friendlier. How do we make sure that the pendulum doesn't swing too far, right? Because I do agree we could use clarity. There's some rules like 1071. But then we know what happens when you allow what I would call the wild, wild west of lending, right? We've seen that before. Yeah. How do we make sure we don't get into that, but that we continue to encourage the good actors, but at the same time, like watch out for the really bad actors that have historically served the communities that we've been talking about on this panel?
So I'm not the regulator on my team, so I won't get it too technical in responding to this question. But what I will say is that from the city's perspective, from the office's perspective, we are established to really support fintechs and providing that guidance. If there's something in the capacity of that is not really meeting the needs of fintechs in the district, and that's something that we can respond to, or create a more regulatory friendly environment and propose new legislation to council, that's what the office is positioned to do. And so we really want to hear from fintechs about what's working and what's not. But we also want to keep our residents in mind and think about the legislation and the policies that protect them as well. So it is a fine balance. But the office is here and it's committed to work with both entities, whether it's obviously speaking to the needs of residents or working closely with fintechs to make sure that they have what they need to excel and have the tools to flourish in the district, which is our goal.
Thank you, great answer. And I threw that one out. We didn't practice that one, so apologies. How about giving a big round of applause to Tamara, Magnus, Gonzalo, and Kelly. Thank you very much for being on this panel. And again, thank you to AFC for hosting this conversation on justice, equity, and inclusion in the fintech industry. Thanks, everybody.